So I got to say, you use every part of this building. There's art in the hallways. There's art in the kitchen. It's amazing.
Yes, we use every inch. If there's a wall, we should fill it. So currently, we are in the hallway. We call it the Hallway Gallery at 20 Academy Street in Arlington at the Arlington Center for the Arts. And currently, this show is by one of our community members, ArtLinks. And we partner with ArtLinks. They have their meetings here, or gatherings, so we call them. They're once a month, the first Wednesday of each month. It's either at noon or at 7 p.m. Every February, ArtLinks has a collaborative exhibit. This year, the theme was 250 Arlington, because it's our 250th anniversary. So we put a call out, and everybody tried to create art that focused on the untold stories of Arlington. It could be current, it could go all the way back in history. And a lot of the folks in this exhibit decided to depict things that happened a long time ago and unearth stories that hadn't been told. And one of the stories was William Dobbs. And Arlington 250 has this wonderful exhibit that they have, and it's on tour. But we had William for a little while, and it's called Where's William? And it's a life-size cardboard figure of William Dobbs. You know, he rode on his horse the same way Paul Revere did, but he got no mention, or I haven't heard of him before. So this is kind of his moment, his 15 minutes of fame, where he gets his story shown.
And he only had to wait 250 years.
Only 250 years. So that gives us all hope, I think. Other folks in here depicted the old Schwab Mill. Some folks depicted the Robbins Library, which happens to be the first library in the United States that had a children's library, which I didn't know about. So I've learned a lot watching this show. A couple artists did something with the pieces of a loom, like the shuttle and the reed part, and created art from that. So it's been kind of a wonderful little collaboration and a very exciting show. And we started partnering with Arlington 250, which is a bonus. And did you have a question?
Sure. I mean, it's not the only community partnership that I know that you're involved with an exhibit to show for it, right?
That's right. The other community partner is Work Bar Arlington. And they're located on Mass Ave, right near MyRack car dealership. And we've been partnering with them for about 7 years. And the way it works is I find an artist or a couple artists. Work Bar provides the space in this beautiful historic building. They get changing art. Every 6 months we change the art. We are able to offer up an exhibit space for artists that we wouldn't have. So we have this wonderful partnership. Now the really cool thing is this particular artist in this hallway exhibit and I collaborated together. Shyam Hussain, he's a light painting photographer, which is it's been around forever apparently, but you paint with light and it's a long exposure. And because of digital photography, you can do more of it. But the thing about this show, which is so cool and why I'm kind of excited about it, is because he had a solo show in the fall, which was beautiful work, but it was just him. And usually I only have one artist, maybe two. So I went out on a limb. It was so easy to work with him. I said, would you be interested in collaborating with me and do a call for these light painting photographers? And he said, sure. I thought, oh, we'll get like 3 or 4. This will be great. A few more artists. We got over 20.
Wow.
Yeah. And we went to jury them. And I couldn't, like, no, we need that one. We need that one. So we juried them all in. And we have over 40 works.
Right, so there's no wall space left at Work Bar.
One of these photographers in the show is Lisa Ryan. Another one is George Lobert, Ralph Robertson, and Elle Hills. So some of them I've heard of, some of them I haven't. But apparently they're like up-and-coming artists in this field. So it's exciting to have them in this exhibit. And the work, you'll see work from Iceland, and then you'll see work from Lexington, a carnival at Lexington. It's like the range it's a full gambit. So it's a fun show to go see. So this exhibit will be up until the end of June, and the hours are Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and it's open to the public. And the rest of the time, folks who rent a space at Work Bar Arlington can go 24/7, but folks who want to see this particular exhibit have to go within those hours. One more thing I wanted to show you. I almost forgot to talk about this. This is Studio ACA, which is our big fundraiser. It's going to be super fun this year. It's a 70s disco theme, and there'll be a really happening DJ and food and dancing. I think there's prizes for the best dancer, which we'll all win. And I hope you can come. It's March 29th from 7 to 10 p.m. Just go to our website. You can find out more information about it, tickets for sale. So we're really excited about these two exhibits. But we also want you to see our main gallery over here. You're going to talk to Delia and Kenny. And they're just down the hall here, so head on over.
Hello, everyone. I'm James Milan, and welcome to this show, which happens to be coming to you from the Arlington Center for the Arts, or the ACA, and specifically the Shaira Ali Exhibition Gallery, the main exhibition gallery here at the ACA. And my guests and I are going to be talking about the current exhibit in this hall. It is called Welcome Home, and we're going to hear a whole lot more about it from Delia Tharnish, who is the Director of Education here at the ACA. Welcome, Delia.
Thank you.
And Kenny Mascari, who is the Interim Chief of Arts and Culture for the City of Boston, and I do mean the City of Boston. Welcome, Kenny.
Thank you.
Welcome to you both. And I guess you're welcoming us, really, because here we are in your space. And really, when I say your space, it is the space that you guys have curated, have made decisions for the art that is around us, which it certainly does give a sense of the breadth of the artworks that are in here. So I would like to start just by asking you, how did this even come about? And how is it that we, the Arlington Center for the Arts here in Arlington, are getting to collaborate with the City of Boston through Kenny around this? So either one of you or both, jump on in.
I guess I can start. So this show was originally scheduled almost a year ago, and for various reasons we had to move it. And so like the timing worked out that Kenny's schedule was also free. And Kenny and I worked together in the city of Cambridge doing youth programming, and so that's where we met.
Great. And I said that it was Welcome Home, but I gave the name of it, but I didn't describe anything else about it. Could you tell us, like, basically what is the exhibit about?
Yeah, so when Delia called and said, hey, do you want to curate this exhibit? And the theme is around first generation and immigrant artists in the community of Arlington. And Arlington has seen an increase in migrants arriving to Arlington, and as a way to acknowledge what's happening socially, she's like, do you want to help us curate a show that celebrates the diversity of culture and the artistry of immigrants and first generation in Arlington? So that's the genesis of it all. And it's also serendipitous in the fact that the show moved from when it was to happen at some point last year to the beginning of this year, where there's been a lot of conversation around, with what's happening in Washington, with, the new president and everything that's happening. So it was almost our way of speaking out by saying, hey, welcome home, that Arlington and the whole region as a whole is definitely a home for diverse voices, but specifically that artists always had something to say. And that was an opportunity for us to highlight what people bring with them when they come to this country, and in some instances, what they had to leave behind to pursue the dream of insert what the American version of that dream is for them.
Yeah, we were talking with Tom Formicola, the executive director of the ACA, before going on air here, and he was explaining that as far as all of you guys are concerned, and certainly I felt the same from walking around and reading the text that accompanies the different artworks, that text is just as much a part of the whole, of the impact that you're looking to have. So I'm curious, among other things, who came up with that text? Was that the artist in each case? Yeah.
So we always collect an artist statement from every artist, and we say we may, display this with the work. In a lot of shows, it doesn't necessarily provide the amount of context that was kind of important for this show. So once we selected all the artwork, we reached back out to all the artists and said, if you're interested, we'd love you to share a bit about each piece that was selected. And we had, I think, almost all of our artists respond. And then we also offered them the opportunity to share that language in their native language as well, which is featured in some of the works.
That's great. And what was, I mean, I'm curious, what was the reaction of the artist? I assume you reached out to artists, or did you put a call out? How did that happen?
Yeah, so we put a call out for every show. It was open for about 3 months, and we did pretty extensive outreach to a number of local cultural organizations, both within Boston and even out into, surrounding suburbs, and then obviously, really working with Arlington artists as well. This show really brought in a nice diversity of artists in terms of people who are familiar with ACA and people who had also exhibited with us before. So we have a number of artists who have been with us in various capacities, exhibiting, teaching, displaying at our Open Studios event, and also a number of artists who were brand new to ACA, had never heard of us before, but knew that we were featuring work from immigrant and first-generation artists, and that was something that brought them into our space.
And I would say that diversity is also evident in the modalities of art that is exhibited here, but also a wide range of ages. We have someone as young as 16 to folks who are definitely more seasoned artists in their own practice, and including folks who do this professionally and those who do this as a means of self-care and building community. So it was definitely an opportunity to celebrate the cultural heritage and what's happening currently in Arlington. And when we were reviewing the submissions, I think it was very hard to say no to a lot of what was being presented. But at the same time, we knew that not everything that we accepted would also fit as part of the space and the show. So I think the challenge really came when we had to install the show and also see how do we make each piece speak to another and not have too many of the same pieces from the same artist in the same area. But ultimately, I think what we ended up having here is a show, again, Welcome Home, and the essence of what home means for people is true in each one of these pieces. And the journey too, from where you were to who you are today, to those who you remember as part of your journey, to those that we want to create space for. I think there is, all of this is present in the show, and we're really proud of the turnout. The reception was amazing. There was a great, diverse group of folks from the artists. And again, the languages that were being spoken here, from French to Vietnamese to English to Spanish to Chinese, it was definitely, Mandarin, it was definitely a broad, and for me, as someone who grew up in the Caribbean with Haitian parents, coming in here, it felt like home. And I was grateful that, other artists also were able to participate in that.
Yeah, obviously the vibrancy of having the artists themselves, as well as their supporters, people from representing this kind of diversity of different cultures, backgrounds, ages, as you said, must have been, a really absolutely exquisite kind of moment in that way. But the vibrancy, I think, of the work speaks for itself as well. And clearly this is work that is meaningful to the people taking it in, but also to the people who are producing it, obviously. And so you mentioned that it was hard to say no. Talk a little bit more about that. I assume that the artists, as you reached out to them and as they understood what this exhibit was going to be about, were pretty excited to be involved. Did you end up having an avalanche of submissions that you really needed to kind of unfortunately curate down to a handleable number, or did it work more easily than that?
So we accepted work from every artist who submitted. So a lot of it then became people who submitted 2 or 3 works, really evaluating those pieces against kind of what we wanted the entire show to communicate. But that was important for us. It's something we talked about, but we really felt that, given that we're really working with a population that isn't often included and invited into art spaces or in communities, unfortunately, it was important that we gave space for everyone's voice to be heard and seen.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of, the inclusion aspect of things, I assume, was right in the DNA of the genesis of the project, as you said.
Right, and access too, right? I think there's a story in terms of the different identities that we have to take when, you leave where you're comfortable, what's home with family and friends, into a strange land, pursuing opportunities. But a lot of times these identities are things that we have to shed at home in order to put on our hard hat to work and survive. So I think that was a call for first generation and immigrant artists to call back into that sense of creativity that is innate to all of us and really showcase that. At least I know my parents coming here were really adamant about working hard, getting a good education, and art was never part of that conversation. And from my experience as well, that is a common thing among a lot of immigrant families where art and your artistry is not always something that is called upon to be celebrated. So when this show came about, and it was literally focusing and trying to pull out what we all share as human, which is our right to be creative. I think that was a different lens in celebrating first generation and immigrants, not only for their contributions to our economy, but also to our art scene. And I encourage everyone to definitely see the depth of what Arlington has to offer from that creative standpoint, because again, I can say that I was definitely surprised by how people showed up, and it was very timely. So we definitely can account for luck in a way that we had to reschedule the show. And when the call came out, I think it was more than just an exhibit. It was an opportunity for organizing. It was an opportunity for folks to come together around shared values. And again, I think we all desperately want to have a place that we can call home. And I think this was an opportunity for us to provide that using art for those who are offering their art as, a reminder of what home should feel like. Mm-hmm. And hopefully some of the pieces that you can also take into your own home or is an extension of what we want to accomplish here by making sure that folks who come here have a place that they can call home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you both have mentioned the serendipity of the fact that it got moved. And you mentioned, Kenny, very diplomatically the situation that we're all very aware of around immigration as a topic. Even around inclusion and giving voice, having voices for folks. I'm wondering, what has your experience been? Have you, I tend to think of Arlington as the kind of community where this is going to be well received at any time. That's my sense. Mm-hmm. But I'm wondering if, first of all, if you've had any pushback, and second of all, Delia, since you work here in Arlington, do you share Kenny's surprise? How pleasantly surprised it sounds like he was with the kind of reaction and the outpouring of that reaction.
Mm-hmm. To our knowledge, we haven't received any pushback. I think, as you mentioned, we knew we would get a positive response. I think this show is served to kind of bring some of those cultural organizations and the identities of people kind of into the limelight, which has been nice. We know Arlington is diverse as people who, work pretty inclusively in the community. But it's nice that we're able to provide a space. And it's also interesting because we've been able to do it both actively and passively, right? We've been able to do events and invite the public in and create opportunities for engagement, but we've also created a space where people can come in on their own time and spend time with the art and not necessarily have a conversation, but it's an opportunity for that reflection and to kind of see, a visual representation of what our community can be and the beauty that is already here.
Mm-hmm. And historically, this country was built with the labor of immigrants both voluntary and involuntarily. So I think at the time, what we really wanted to emphasize is that we still have a lot to say and we still have a lot to contribute, not just in dollars, but in terms of how we feel and what the city looks like. And, you know, in Boston specifically, we're, you know, the mayor is currently in Washington, you know, facing Congress in terms of being a sanctuary city and what it means. And I think this is, at least for me, and I won't speak for everyone else, but this is my endorsement to say that, like, we are a country that wants to continue being built with the contribution of immigrants. On the eve of the 250th of the independence and even of the incorporation of Arlington, I think it's timely to remind folks as well that it takes pieces of each of us from various parts of the world to come here and build America to what it is. So we're not doing anything different than what our forefathers have done or imagined that this country would provide for us.
I'm going to ask you now just a question that certainly you wouldn't have been prepared for and you might not have an answer for. So I'll just say that, and if you don't, that's fine. But I'm wondering if you have any, between over the course of the entire thing, from the time you came together with the idea to then reaching out to the artists, getting their responses, curating the show, then going through the reception. Do you have any stories that you can pull up that are particularly meaningful for you from that time?
We, through this show and through the generosity of our funders and our partners, you know, we got funding from the ACAC Grants Committee, which is a local cultural council, Mass Cultural Council. We're part of the 250 celebration as well through that. And then we've also partnered with the Human Rights Commission. You know, through their funding, we've been able to offer paid teaching opportunities to 2 artists of color whose work is exhibited in the show. So for me, that's always great because it's taking the ideas and the thoughts and putting them into action, right? Because part of being an artist is also being able to pay artists and also being able to compensate artists fairly, and particularly for all of our participants of color. So that's one story that I feel has really kind of stood out to me.
Mm-hmm.
And tying to those 2 artists, one of them was here while we were installing the pieces, and they were very fragile. There were sticks put together artistically and intentionally. Did I say they were very fragile? Mm-hmm. So as we're installing, I can just see the artist looking at me, kind of like, oh my God, this is my work. And one of them actually did end up needing some repair. So it was, again, an opportunity for us to connect even more in terms of what this means for them to be part of this show and what the hope is that folks who see it and get to interact with the show to take away. And that was one of the artists who also had a station when we had the opening so that they can offer their artistry as well to those who are coming in as part of the reception. And for me, that was, again, another way that a new relationship was born from them trusting us with their work to, again, being part of caring for it and then extending it to the Arlington community. So I think that was a whole journey for that artist, I would say, from again, as an artist, your work can be lonely. You're by yourself in your studio, at times doubting whether or not this is good enough. And then you present it to someone who has to care about it just as much as you to install it, and then offer that as a tool for a community. So I think these are the kind of stories that encourage us, and is at the essence of why Welcome Home is touching at what it means to be home. It's not just about having a roof. It's having people that you can connect with when you're navigating situations. It's about knowing who to go to share art, but also to create. And I think that was a great, at least for me, that was one of the stories that I took away in terms of what this meant, what, like Delia said, both actively and passively, that the impact of welcoming folks home can be done here in different ways through this show.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all agree that home and community are completely interwoven as important, essential values and rights for all of us human beings. And it is really interesting the way that you guys, been great to talk to you, to get a sense that what you've just been describing, Kenny, of the way that home, the way that the different ways in which this feels like home. And I love the idea that for an artist, home also means either being around other artists or being around, interacting with those who are being impacted by the art. And that all that coming together is truly what you're talking about in welcoming people home.
Yeah, and I would be remiss too if I didn't mention that we didn't get any native art as part of this. And that is, at least for me, how do we invite native voices to be part of the conversation when we're talking about home and when we're talking about this land. I would be remiss not to mention that even with all this amazing work from around the world, that there are still voices that we hope that we can reach that we weren't able to this time around, but directly or indirectly that we're still advocating for everyone to have a seat at the table to talk about issues that are important to them, and to do so with confidence, and to do so and with the knowledge that you will be heard and cared for.
You're pretty prescient, I have to say there, Kenny, because you anticipated my final question, which was, what have you learned from this that you want to do, that you'll carry forward to a next iteration of this kind of thing? That's certainly one answer, which is, again, renewed efforts to reach out even more broadly and effectively to other communities. Anything else?
It reminds me of the power of continuing to do outreach. We've had at least 2 artists in the show who told us they hadn't exhibited before who have now applied to our next show. And so for me, that's really important because I think we always need to remind ourselves to keep our arms open and continually make space for new artists, because as we know, the more people we bring into this community, the richer the conversations, the richer the interactions, the richer the relationships that we can build that really benefit not only ACA, but the greater community as well.
All right, well said to you both. Anything else you want to share or add as we close the conversation?
A big thing right now is money, right? And where tariffs and all of these things, and it's really affecting everybody. But it's important to remind yourself that the best way to impact is to support small and local businesses, right? And one of those is our artists here. So if you're so inclined or so interested, we really encourage people to consider, are there works here that speak to you that would also look good in your spaces, that would make good gifts, and really kind of remind people the power that their own purchasing has, and the impact that can have for these artists, particularly. Almost all the work in this show is for sale. So
that's great. Great to hear and great to remind folks, that's for sure.
And I would also invite folks to get active and engage with the Arlington Center for the Arts. It's, in addition to your funding, there are great programs here that they offer. And if you are, a facilitator or an educator or someone looking for community, that you can reach out to Tom, Delia, and the staff, and they will make you feel as if you were home. So there is always an opportunity for us to continue growing in, the impact that this work has, but also, again, hopefully this is the first of many, and that we can see different modalities and some newcomers and hopefully some returners as well for future iterations of the show.
All right. Well, thanks to both of you for joining us. Thanks to the artists for providing such brilliant content around us. Thanks to the ACA as well for inviting us into your space. She's Delia Tharnish, and the Director of Education here at the ACA. He is Kenny Mascari, who is the Interim Chief of Arts and Culture for the City of Boston. I am James Milan. This is Talk of the Town. We appreciate these guys taking their time. We appreciate you being here as well. For all of us here, we thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
ACMi productions are only made possible with your support. Visit patreon.com/ACMi to learn how you can help.